I'll tell you a story you do not.
Ah, yes, Juve. That yearly cultural phenomenon of waking up at ungodly hours of the morning, walking the streets and getting covered in paint, powder, and or mud. Willingly. You're doing this willingly. That's what most people know Juve as. But it's so much more than that. So you know what? Let me tell you about it right now. Come along. So, Juve, or Juve, as it is most commonly known and spelled, or Juve, as its Creole name, was born in the late 19th century under African enslavement in Trinidad. On the plantations, while the colonizers were having their own masquerades and balls and such festivities that the enslaved were banned from, the enslaved semi-secretly put on their own version of carnival and festivities that were based on African traditions and involved processions, dancing, drumming, and rituals that all honored their heritage. In 1834, after the Emancipation Bill was passed in the British Parliament, the apprenticeship system began, whereby slaves would work 40 hours a week in exchange for housing, clothes, food, medical assistance, and stipends. During this period of marginal freedom, the Africans took their processional celebrations onto the streets in bands, where batoniers or stickmen served as protection and security. Here, many costumes emerged as a satirical response to the quirks of the slave masters like the Dame Lorraine, who were men that dressed as fashionable planters' wives with exaggerated features. And we also saw the emergence of costumes that were inspired by West African folklore and traditions, like the Jab Jab, which is a little demon, and the stilt walking Mokojambi. Additionally, it was during this period of apprenticeship that we saw the full emergence of the Carnival procession. Under enslavement, the cane fields sometimes just erupted in flames, whether mysteriously, as pest control or as sabotage is unknown, and Africans from various plantations would take torches and go to the site to engage in the grueling and perilous task of saving these burning cane fields. Burnt cane can brûler. These flambeaux, or the burning torches, later became an integral symbol of freedom after emancipation and a paramount aspect of the Canboulay procession, which celebrated the freedom of the formerly enslaved and indentured laborers. It is characterized by drumming, singing and chanting, stick fighting and kalinda dancing, which is a martial art and also a folk music and war dance based on African combat dancing. 4 years later, full emancipation was achieved on August 1st, 1838, as apprentices rebelled against the system that were basically still enslaving them, but with a different name and for negligible exchange. From this, there was a reinvigoration of West African and Central African culture in Port-au-Spain, particularly in the communal housing spaces of the barrack yards in easternmost Port-au-Spain, where we now call Charlotte Street, East Dry River, and Celux, etc. Here, these carnival processions kept developing and being revitalized, and in 1840, the Canboulay procession became the annual commemoration for emancipation after emancipation celebrations got moved from August 1st, which is the actual anniversary date, to the Sunday before Carnival Monday, what we now call the Marche Gras. And no more than 3 years later, Carnival became limited to 2 days by the British colonial authorities, and the Canboulay procession was moved to Carnival Monday morning in a move to stop the Sabbath from being desecrated by the first day of Carnival. It was said that since no starting time was specified, Carnival goers began their processional celebrations at the stroke of midnight. This was a significant moment in the history of Juve. And in the following years, leading up to 1881, the colonial authorities kept taking offense and trying to ban the aspects of Carnival that they found too offensive, like the masquerading and the satirical portrayals of said authorities and the drumming and the singing and even just the gathering of people. So eventually, and of course, the Africans had enough of their carnival and festivities being suppressed and of them being oppressed. After the British government tried to completely ban Canbule, the Africans began rioting and fighting for the freedom to express themselves and for the freedom to celebrate their freedom. It is said that people covered themselves with paint or oil to avoid being recognized, or that they may have been covered in black soot from burning cane. In the year after this, in 1884, the colonial government passed the Peace Preservation Act, and this essentially banned the flambeau carrying, blowing horns, drumming, and stick fighting. From this, the tambu bamboo was introduced as a substitute for drums and sticks, along with other percussion instruments that were developed using metal and other items. This Peace Preservation Act also established 6 a.m. as the official start of Carnival. And although Canbule was traditionally a nighttime celebration, it started to become a 6 a.m. celebration of a Canbule reinterpretation, and revelers took advantage of pre-dawn darkness and started celebrating before 6 o'clock. It is here that Juve became established as an early morning, pre-dawn celebration and got its namesake of daybreak or jour ouvert, which then became Juve, which we creolized as Juve. One source has also said that the pre-dawn tradition of Juve may have roots in Caribbean folklore and that it may be inspired by the Trinidadian legend of the Sukuya, who is somewhat of a local vampire who sheds her skin during the night, transforms into a flying fireball, drinks the blood of her victims, and leaves bruises on their skin. But before dawn, she must re-enter her skin, and if she is unable to or is trapped, either because somebody made her count rice grains or because salt was sprinkled on her skin, as dawn draws nearer, she will cry out, Juve, du paka ouve, in, French Creole, of course, which means daybreak. Are you coming? Today, most of these traditions still stand. Juve processions still occur in bands that are protected by security, like actual security officers, instead of stickmen. And these processions still occur in the dark hours of pre-dawn, typically at about 4 a.m. It still features the traditional masquerade characters like the Jab Jab and the modern iteration, the Blue Devil. They often feature horns and chains and other elements that are symbolic of resistance, defiance, and freedom. People still cover themselves in paint, oil, and mud, and instead of using this as a disguise, it is symbolic of breaking free from societal norms and embracing the primal and liberating spirit of the occasion. And in keeping with the links to the Sukuya folklore legend, it can be seen as an act of shedding your identity and putting on new skin. And furthermore, instead of the drumming and portable percussion instruments that accompany the revelers in the procession, Juve today, like Carnival mass processions, are accompanied by music trucks that play soca. And before the 1970s, they used to be accompanied by steel pan. Now, why did I spend the last, 9 or so minutes lecturing, enlightening you about Juve? Well, because I played Juve for the first time this year. Because I've always wanted to. And after many a year of saying this, I finally played it. I finally played my little Juve. And this is my first time playing Juve. I played with a band located around Queen's Park Oval named Duck Crew, yes. And if that wasn't funny enough, our theme was Our theme was glow in the duck. Yes. Look at us. Look at us glowing in the duck. You see us glowing in the duck? But anyways, it was a really great and a really, really fun first time experience. And I definitely have some serious Juve to banker. And I want to play next year. I really do. Don't mind that I get, physically tired halfway through and my hips start to hurt and my legs fall off midway through. I was really having a hard time by the end of it all, but it was all good. It was all fun and I would do it again, maybe with better shoes and socks. I also must say that knowing the history of Juve made it so much more enriching and definitely made me appreciate every aspect of the procession even more. There was so much freedom in walking through the streets of Port of Spain covered in the darkness of night and then covered in paint and good vibes. And when the sun rose, it was the most beautiful thing ever. I have always loved a good sunrise and a good sunset. Anybody that knows me knows that I love a good sky scene, right? But to experience the break of dawn amongst my fellow revelers, with music pumping, drinks flowing, and paint and water and powder sharing, with such joy and revelry in the air, it was truly a celebration. It was truly a celebration of freedom. It was really an unforgettable experience, and I cannot wait for Juve next year.
Now make Carnival friend until we